WBAL radio app.
All right, I got a good description of our guest that is joining us. It says here, a colonel in the Air Force, a cybersecurity expert, big policy advocate for public schools, and an overall good dude. That is how he is being described by one of my friends, and I'm happy to welcome Delegate Reid Novotny. Delegate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Kim, thanks for having me on.
I'm really appreciative. You know, this is a big race in general. I know you guys have District Team 9 out there. If you can let our audience know exactly where you're located and who's on the team and what are you guys fighting for?
Yeah, the district itself is currently composed of Western Howard County and just the top of Montgomery County. So we have both Clarksburg and Clarksville, Ellicott City, and the like out there. The team we've put together is a lot of strong individuals. I'm running for the state Senate position from being currently a delegate, as you had mentioned. And then we have Delegate Trent Kittleman, Lisa Kim, and also Dr. Jenny Zhang. And all four of us are out there working hard, talking voters, making sure we get our message out.
Nice. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you would be the first Republican to represent part of Montgomery County since 2002. Is that correct?
Kim, you're right. The first Republican to represent any part of Montgomery County down in Annapolis, and there are more conservative members, people who live in Montgomery County than most counties, as you probably well know. And it would be a extreme, honor to be able to represent those people. The interesting part too is that there are 10 senators that actually represent part of Montgomery or part of Howard County. All 10 of those right now are Democrats, and I would be the only one who might be in the minority party helping out.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know what? I have to ask you, Delegate, about the education system there in Howard County, because, just a couple weeks ago, I had a guest on. I don't know if you're familiar with Kunjufu is his last name, but he was actually visiting educators there. It was some kind of event. And he was talking about how he felt that black male students were not performing well because they didn't have black teachers that also dubbed as mentors. And I thought to myself, why are we pulling race in at a time like this? I know you're huge when it comes to advocacy for, just bettering the education system. If you can let us know, are you hearing about some of these issues? And if so, do you have a plan in place? Because, of course, even the Kerwin Commission is going to be coming into play.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about as far as education, and the person that I happen to be running against, I think is wrong on education just about every single time. So Kerwin specifically is, in my opinion, first of all, the largest tax increase and bill that we've had in Maryland ever, and it just develops a whole bunch of the same solutions that have not worked in the past. So I dub it as one of the biggest union payouts that we've ever seen here in Maryland. The biggest thing here in Howard County, too, is we've had a myriad of either Board of Education or we've had even our superintendent try to redistrict our schools. One of the things that makes our schools the best in Howard County that we really are proud of is the fact that we have our kids going to community and local schools. And that's not anti any race, as you're speaking about. That's not pro or against anything that we want to do here. But the person I'm running against actually started developing a plan to make regional schools, so taking us away from those community schools. So when I was down in the legislature, even last session, I put in a bill that actually would allow parents to know more about what was going on in their schools. It was a bill of rights for people to have more transparency into their schools. And of course, this is the problem with being in the minority party down in Annapolis. They don't even take a vote on it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to do things like the program called Boost. I'm sure you are familiar with it. It's a program actually to help very poor, usually minority kids, and a lot of people in Baltimore City use that program. Every year, the majority party tries to get rid of it, and every year we're down there fighting to keep it in place. So we need to have more equity in our schools, but we also need to try different things like Boost, which will allow students to go to the school that fits them best and try private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, any of those things. But more money after the unions is always the answer when you go to Annapolis with a lot of the people who are in the majority party.
Yeah, well, staying on the topic of education really quickly here, you got school starting next week. What are you hearing when it comes to Howard County in the teacher shortage? And do you guys, do you believe that Howard County's been on top of trying to hire and recruit? Do you think that the teachers unions are doing their job? What is your take there?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about next week because my daughter is going into middle school, which is outstanding, and I'm excited for that. So we're all, like most parents around here, getting excited about it. The teacher shortage, again, I don't think is solved by just throwing money after the problem. Teachers do need to be respected, but they also need to be represented. You know, it's almost like people are confessing in me. The teachers that come and talk to me, they confess in me, and they share information about how they are being taught information on how to teach our kids, right? They come to me and they say, we really want to teach the basics. We want to talk about reading, writing, and arithmetic. And then time after time, there is an agenda to make sure that we are teaching things that are not necessarily important for the success of our students. So we have this undercurrent of teachers who feel like they're not represented by the union or the administration, and then they come to people like myself because we know we will at least advocate for them and make calls and introduce legislation and the like. But it is not all about pay, because we're actually paying our Howard County teachers fairly well for the time in which they serve us, and I am not against paying them any more. But again, we can pay them a lot of money. They still can't afford to live in Howard County as an entry teacher because of all the other taxes that we have in a place like Howard or Montgomery County, too.
Yeah, well, switching gears here a little bit, when it comes to crime, now this is something, especially in Baltimore City, that we deal with often. What do you see happening there on the ground in District 9? And do you feel that Howard County has got a good hold on it, or are there changes that could be made?
Yeah, crime affects us all, right? So we often talk about Baltimore City because it makes the news often. We see some horrific crimes that go on there. And as a state politician, we're voting on these laws that will affect the entire state. The person I happen to be running against voted against the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. We were the first state to have it and the first state to get rid of it. I've talked to the police chiefs in both Montgomery and Howard County, and the biggest thing that they're facing is that police shortage that we're seeing nationwide. We have a demoralized group of individuals who just want to serve their county, and we have less and less of them wanting to stay, more of them retiring early, and less of them coming into the incoming classes. So we do have an uptick in crime in our bigger cities, like Columbia, that's in Howard County. And I think what we need to do is the basics, right? We need to get back to the basics. We need to have strong enforcement of our crimes. We need to not allow the criminals to walk free, because we're doing that here in Howard County too. We have these policies that are even down in our educational system, where I've talked to multiple parents where there's fights at school that would be considered assault, using a weapon like a stick, or this happened to be a crutch, and hitting someone upside the head, and then they don't get punished because they want to decriminalize everything that happens, especially at schools. That is the type of attitude that we have going on in our school system, and it's also permeating into places like the Columbia Mall, and we have higher carjackings, we have higher rates of crime. Just one of our friends, I know our mutual friends, had their building burnt down. It was arson. I mean, this stuff used to not happen in Howard County, and it's happening more and more.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And, we were just hearing a press conference today, Delegate, I don't know if you were tuned in, but U.S. Attorney Eric Barron and U.S. Attorney General Brian Frosh, along with Governor Larry Hogan, they were in Baltimore City today talking about the uptick in gang violence. I have to say, I've heard about some of the gang violence there in Howard County, and I'm wondering, have you guys received also some help from the state and federal level?
So we have not. We have not specifically received help coming through the state delegation. I know our police force actually is cooperating with other agencies, which I think is great. We should cooperate with all the agencies that we can. And the bottom line problem, though, is that we got to make sure that when we see these problems, we actually talk about it, because Howard County has this this thought process that we can't talk about it if there's a problem out there in our community. We should be able to talk about it, address it, work together to make sure that we have a solution that will work with all the people involved.
Yeah, if anyone's just joining us, we are speaking to Delegate Reid Novotny, and he is running for state senate in District 9. I have to ask you, Delegate, how do you plan to pool Democrat and independent voters? Because you would need to do something like that in Montgomery County.
You're right, and I think this is what we have. We're just going to keep to the basics. We're talking about crime as we are here. Kim, we're talking about schools, and we're talking about the economy. I've told probably thousands of people at this point, I think we win on every single issue. My background and my voting record is very clear on how I support the fact that, this year alone, this last legislative session, we had an $8 billion surplus. And the Democrats that we have down in Annapolis spent 98.5% of that and gave a tax break to 1.5% back as a tax break. I voted against most of those tax increases, and I actually supported Governor Hogan when he tried to eliminate the retiree taxes here in Maryland. So schools we went through, crime we went through also. But this is the biggest problem, too, is that we don't need to send more people down to Annapolis that are just going to be part of the Annapolis culture. The person I'm running against came out when she ran the first time and said that she would support nonpartisan maps, right? So it would be fair for not only the independents, because independents can't vote in the primaries, but it would be fair for everyone in that region. She went back on that promise and voted for a map that changed the district by 14,000. And this is how. They got rid of 8,500 Republicans in the district, and they added 5,500 Democrats to the district. So now it's set up. It used to be a solid R district. Now it is the #1 most competitive district in the state of Maryland. And don't get me wrong, I want to fight for this, but I think it's up to the voters to turn out and make sure they're informed on who they're voting for.
Absolutely. And Delegate, before I let you go, of course, the huge conversation, I think, across the country is in regards to election integrity. When it comes to election security, how, do you feel confident moving forward here into November and obviously forward to 2024 that we are going to have a safe and secure election?
I do, and this is why I say it. There is no reason you shouldn't get out and vote. If you don't trust the electoral system, we all lose. So you have to do that. But I think our goal as a society, as the State Board of Elections, and everyone in an elected position should be that there should be 0 errors. So I consistently tried to vote that way. We had a bill that was in the House of Delegates this year, and it introduced drop boxes in jails, which some people who are in jail still can vote because they have the right to do that. But it was to take them away and not offer them in like a VA hospital. So someone who has served our country honorably, might be in a VA hospital, doesn't have a drop box, but they're going to put them in jails. And those are the kind of decisions that don't get publicized too much. But we want to make sure that every person who is eligible to vote can vote and does vote. And I saw that it was less than 30% turned out for the primaries just a couple of weeks ago. So I encourage everyone to get out there and vote. And we will do our best to make sure every single vote is counted and counted correctly.
Nice. And, I know it's very tough in a midterm year, especially with voter turnout. But, I think you're correct in saying, look, if we can't trust the election, the integrity of an election, then, there's much that we can't trust overall in this country. But I do think we can trust that the Board of Elections can get it together here in the state of Maryland. I am excited to see what happens here in November, as you are very well aware, obviously, that we had the redistricting, and now that we have so many more competitive districts, I think that there are going to be a lot more people that feel that they actually have a voice going into November. Delegate, before I let you go, how can people keep up with you? How can they get in touch with you? And do you have any events coming up?
Yeah, thanks so much. So my website is just my name, reidnovotny.com. We actually have an event coming up this Sunday if you'd like to come out, and we have a couple of events coming up in the future. But if you go to the website, reidnovotny.com, it has all my contact information. This is what I tell everyone. I promise I will respond back to every single email I get. And some people are shocked about that, but I'm out there trying to work hard and make sure I represent the people out here. And I will tell you, I'm actually a product of student loan forgiveness myself, as you were talking about, and it's called I joined the United States Air Force, and they paid for my school. So I'm a big fan of doing that. If you can serve your country, you get your school paid for.
Nice, nice. I think a lot of people do forget about that. Well, Delegate, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm sure we'll talk to you before November.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.